This is TJ with TechmadeEZ. Welcome to my channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. What we're going to talk about today is my transition from Linux Mint Cinnamon. I've been using Linux Mint in one way or another, XFCE to the Cinnamon desktop for the last, I started 6 years ago, but I didn't start using it seriously until 4 years ago. And about a year ago, I switched from Mint XFCE to Cinnamon, Linux Mint Cinnamon. And there's lots of reasons why I did that. I liked what they're doing with the interface. The interface is so easy to customize right out of the box. It's a great distribution for new users. But I've also been looking at these gaming distros, and I've been doing videos on these gaming distros. And one of the things that I like about these gaming distros, and I'm not a gamer, by the way, but my kids are gamers. And so everything that I do is really for my kids, because one of my kids games with Windows, one games with Linux. And now my oldest son is gaming with PikaOS. Now, why PikaOS over the other options, gaming options that are there? Because I've done a video on CachyOS and how to make CachyOS a daily driver and not just a gaming platform. And so with PikaOS, Pico has everything in it that you need as a daily driver. What do I mean by daily driver? You have to have access to all of the Linux apps that you can install. And some of these gaming distros limit you on the apps that you can install. PikaOS, though, does not. And PikaOS is also based upon Debian. The other ones are based upon Fedora or Arch. And you can game on any distro, though. But these gaming distros give you the latest kernels, the latest drivers, Mesa drivers, everything you need for a more efficient running distro. And PikaOS is one of those as well. And it really piqued my interest when I saw it was Debian. Loaded it up. It was great. The tools are great. My son is gaming on it. He loves gaming on PikaOS. And I thought, you know, maybe I might want to use PikaOS. I was considering CachyOS, switching to CachyOS. But when I saw PikaOS, and it was based on Debian, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I want to try PikaOS because I know it's going to be a little bit more efficient. I've never been like, I like KDE Plasma and I love it on a laptop, but as my desktop, I'm so used to the Linux Cinnamon interface. For me, there are quirky things about KDE Plasma Desktop, which is an option to install when you're installing PikaOS. They give you 4 desktop options. But to me, Plasma is the best one for gaming. The Steam Deck uses the Plasma GUI as well. But there's so few little things, hiccups that I had to get over, and a few challenges that I had to make it a daily driver. So let's go ahead and look at that. So again, I'm not moving to this because of gaming. I do gaming testing though, and so this was an advantage where I could test games with my new system, and I did purchase a new system about a couple of months ago, which makes a big difference as well. And so I just want to show the advantages or the nice things about Cinnamon, and then why I switched over to PikaOS and what challenges that involved. Let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop. And just so you know, if you're not familiar with Linux, there are 3 different desktops available for Linux Mint. Cinnamon, though, is the most customizable. That's their flagship. They have XFCE. And I do want to let you know that I did, when I first started using Linux Mint, I was using the XFCE version at first. I actually installed the Cinnamon version at first, but I noticed I was installing it on an older computer. I didn't want to install it on my main computer at the time. I was trying to create a backup computer, and I noticed that it was the interface was laggy compared to Windows. And that's one thing I noticed about Linux Mint as I've been using it over time with the other desktops out there, is the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop is not quite as efficient as some of the others, but it does allow you to customize the desktop. It's so easy to customize, and there's so much to like about it. So let's go to my desktop, because this is what Linux Mint looks like when you first install it. So this is my Linux Mint desktop now, and so the thing that makes it so attractive is being able to customize your desktop. Linux itself is challenging just to run, find all the apps that you need to run, so on, to make it a daily driver. But as far as customization goes, I mean, and so this is the thing about Linux, is that when you're customizing a desktop, you can go out and grab files, edit your your dot files, so on and so forth, your config files. You can turn it into whatever you want. But some of the distros make it very easy out of the box to just do it point and click. And Cinnamon does that, and so does KDE. They're probably one of the two most customizable, and then GNOME after that. But out of the box, GNOME isn't always customizable. You have to go get extensions. But that being said, I just want to show you how I use Linux Mint. So that being said, I just want to show you my workflow with Linux Mint Cinnamon and how I'm transferring that over to PikaOS. Because there are, if you're not familiar with Linux, there's about between 15 and 20 different GUI interfaces. And that's why I was running the XFCE. The XFCE interface is much more responsive and efficient than the Cinnamon desktop. And so that's why I ran it for a while. But then when I saw all the customization that you could do with Linux Mint Cinnamon, because they don't put those customizations in their other desktop options, I was like, wow, I think I'm going to go to Cinnamon. And I loved it because I could put the toolbar in the center, I can make the toolbar transparent, and you do these through what they call disklets, applets, and extensions. Applets are any icons that you have on your toolbar are called applets. Extension or disklets are widgets. This clock here is a widget. I got lucky when I found this background that I went into the widgets and this clock was there. Now you can make it transparent, which I did here. You can change the color, style, and I put it over the moon, and it just happened to be a mistake that looked good. But anyway, so you have widgets that you can deal with just like you do with KDE, and then extensions. Extensions are something like this toolbar is transparent. Well, that's an extension. Okay, but what I don't understand about Cinnamon is why in the world in the panel they just don't have an option to make it transparent or quicker if they just put certain functions in certain places. But at any rate, one of the things I want to show you here, because this is different than KDE, which I have to deal with when I'm doing that. If I go here to my desktop, and I do believe that this is the way a lot of them work. I haven't used all of the GUI desktops, but I believe GNOME does the same thing. So if I go here, as far as if I want the computer on the screen, then I just click this, and now the computer is there. I usually don't do that. I usually just put the home on there, and then I put mounted devices to show up on the desktop here. So that's why this is showing here, because that's a mounted device. And then a network is also a device. So there's my network server right there, so on and so forth. And so those are really nice. If I want the trash on here, I just click on this, and the trash is there. Well, this doesn't work the same in KDE at all. And so you have to, if I'm going to create a desktop that has the same functionality as Cinnamon, then I have to do workarounds or do it differently in KDE Plasma. So there are just a lot of things to like about this. Now, one of the things that, okay, so I just want to take a minute here just to go over file managers for a minute in Linux. So one thing I didn't realize is that with these different distros and different GUI interfaces, they use different file managers, and I didn't realize that. I thought they all use the same file managers. I started with Linux Mint Cinnamon, so what did I know? But Linux Mint has what they call the Nemo file manager. Well, it comes to find out that this is my favorite file manager. I've tried using some of the others before, because you can install the others on your system, so on and so forth, and I've just found that this file manager is my favorite one. When I went to Linux Mint Cinnamon XFCE, they used the Thunar file manager, and so I went ahead and replaced it with the Nemo file manager, and I didn't know you could do that until then. But what I want to show you here, and this is getting really nitpicky, because when I first set up a system, I create shortcuts to my server. In fact, on the right side of my screen here, I know these folders are maybe small and hard to see, but I have a YouTube folder, because this is where I do all my editing for YouTube. I edit off of my file server, not off my local machine. Movies that I rip and everything, the folders that I put those in are over in this one. So these are all shortcuts to my server. So when I first set up a desktop, I don't use shortcuts a lot, except to access certain folders on my server. So it's important for me to set up shortcuts. So it was a little frustrating at first because I didn't know how shortcuts worked in Linux. In fact, let's click on this folder here, right mouse click. There is no shortcut option there. So when I started researching it, I found out that they call shortcuts symbolic links. And so you'll have this option here in this menu for making a link, and there's my shortcut. Easy once I figured that out. But the other problem with a lot of these file managers in Linux is that make link is not in that menu. You have to go into preferences, and then you have to activate it. So if I go into context menus, the make link is not selected. So I just go in there, select that, and then I can make my links through the GUI there. Now, The other thing that is really weird about Linux, and this is not a Cinnamon issue, it's not a KDE Plasma issue, is when you're on the server. Let me open up my server here, and that's HulkNAS, is my file video server. And I have a personal folder on here, TG. Now if I want to make a link to that, I can hit make link, and it gives me an error. And I'm like, well, how am I going to make my links then to the server if it's not allowing me to do this on a server folder? And so what I also looked up is what is the shortcut keys to creating a symbolic link? Well, it's Shift Control. So if I hold Shift Control down and then click on the folder and drag it out, it creates that link. Don't ask me. This is a quirky thing with Linux, and it doesn't matter what distro you're using. That's just the way it works. But it's different in KDE Plasma, and you'll see when I get there how I have to handle these links to my server. And links and really symbolic links or shortcuts in general using the Nemo File Manager. So I just want to bring that up because I really want to use the Nemo File Manager on KDE Plasma, and I'll show you how I get around that. If we look up here, you're going to see that I'm using almost 30 gigs of RAM. Now the reason why that is the way, that's not because of Cinnamon. Cinnamon's usually, when you boot up, is usually around 2 gigs of RAM. Then once you start up on applications, obviously it's going to be used more. But I want to show you how I use my virtual desktop. So in Linux, I didn't even know anything about virtual desktops until I went to Linux. And then Windows started putting virtual desktops in maybe 10 and 11, so on and so forth. And so I really started liking virtual desktops because I could split up my workflow to different desktops, almost like another computer. And so that's how I use this. I want to show you this really quick because it does work a little differently at KDE Plasma on how you access your virtual desktops. The virtual desktops work the same, but how you access them is differently. Now this particular Expo, there's 3 dots here. This is an applet that you can put on here, and same with these other things here, like this one here shows information about my system when I hover over it, and then it shows graphical information here as well. But at any rate, when I hit this, and these are my 4, I use 4 virtual desktops. You can use as many as you want, to be honest, but I only need 4. And on my 4th one, this is where I manage my YouTube channel, and I use Google Chrome for that. I only use Google Chrome to manage my channel. And then on this second one, I have a server, and I'm just going to go ahead and minimize this Linux background there. And so this is where I manage my server. I can access my server from the web GUI, and so CachyOS is here, and then I have TrueNAS. CachyOS is my app server. TrueNAS is my file server. They sit on different machines, and then obviously Plex is in here that I manage Jellyfin. I use both Jellyfin and Plex. I'm about ready to dump Plex though. I'm making a video about that and why. Handbrake, sometimes I use that on my app server as well. So I just want to show you this because this is how I've broken things up. It's just accessing the virtual desktops is different in KDE than it is in Linux with Cinnamon. And then my one desktop here, this is where I just do all my research and stuff that I'm doing, or work on this one. And then when I'm doing my video editing, I do that on my 3rd virtual desktop, and I run my video editor in a VM. Now this is the challenging thing about me going to Linux. I didn't want to give up my video editor because I've been using it for over 20 years. Yeah, when it first started out, it was just a music editor, and then they turned it into a video editor. And it was Sony Vegas Pro back then, and then Sony sold it off, and now it's just Vegas Pro. And I stopped buying new versions at 18 because the video editor was a little buggy with some of those later versions, but the newer version, once it got to 18, a lot of those bugs worked out, and I just like Vegas Pro. It's very easy for me to use. I'm not a professional video editor, so it's just very easy to use. So, but to run the video editor in a VM is very challenging because the VMs aren't very efficient at displaying the screens, and so it was really choppy. I couldn't do it at first, and then I found VMware. VMware is the most efficient VM out there for your desktop. It has a 3D accelerator that makes video editing like this smoother. Now it's not perfect, but it's smooth enough where I can edit videos with it. Where before it was just too choppy, sound was choppy. It was just terrible. So and now the reason why I bring this up with VMware, because this is going to be a challenge on PikaOS as well. So some of these things that I'm talking about here, I'm talking because there are going to be challenges as I go over to PikaOS. I want to show you how I overcame those challenges and how I'm using PikaOS now. Now, one thing that I did try to do is I noticed the application Winboat. And Winboat was, I was very curious about Winboat and how it would work. And so I did put it on here, and I tried it, and it works fine. Now, you got to remember, one thing I didn't explain is I've been using a Xeon system now for several years, the HP Z440, and so I was running on that. And then I upgraded my system to an AMD, and I'm using the Ryzen 9 9550X, and I'm using the X because I mostly do production work on my PC, not gaming. But I do gaming testing, and so I figured that was kind of a, anyway. So I just wanted to get, I like having a lot of cores. Whenever I was using the Z440, I had either 16 to 18 cores I was working with. And the reason why is because the video editor in a VM cannot use the video card to render your video. So it's working pure off of horsepower, off of the CPUs. And that's one reason why I like a computer with a lot of cores. And the same thing goes today with the newer one. Again, I have 16 cores, 32 threads, so on and so forth. And that's why, but so with my newer system, it works VMs way even better than it did with my Z440. So let's go ahead and jump over to PikaOS, and let's take a look at PikaOS, and let's see what challenges I have there and how I resolved those challenges to use that as a daily driver, and why I went to PikaOS. All right, so here we are on my PikaOS desktop. Now, obviously, I'm using a different wallpaper this time, you know, and I don't have the same widgets I had before. Widgets work differently, and the widgets are different on KDE Plasma. So I just want to talk about some of the hurdles that I had to go through just to make it convenient for me to make it work somewhat similar to the way I'm working. My workflow is on Cinnamon. Now, obviously, virtual desktops you can do here, so on and so forth. And before I go into the virtual desktops, there's three main items I want to talk about here that were minor challenges, one major challenge. All right, so let's talk about file managers for a minute here. Like I mentioned, KDE uses the Dolphin file manager. This is a Dolphin file manager right here. It's a very nice file manager. Again, it would be my second choice of file managers to use if I didn't use Nemo. But then here's my Nemo file manager here. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit nitpicky here between these file managers. Again, Dolphin is one of my favorite file managers. Nemo is my favorite. But one of the things I don't like is when I'm in list view with Dolphin, I just don't like all these lines that are connected to the folders. I don't mind the separation with the charcoal and the black, but it just seems messy here. I just like the cleaner look of Nemo over here compared to Dolphin. The other thing is too is I have my network server here called HopeNAS, so I'll just click on that. But the HopeNAS is just HopeNAS. Now over here it doesn't say HopeNAS. It gives me the whole path to HopeNAS. I don't want to see the whole path to HopeNAS. I don't need to see it. I just need to see that that's my server and click on it. And on top of it, it does give you the full path up here in the description. And it gives you the full path over here in Nemo. So if you really want to see the whole path to that server folder, it's right there. Anyway, again, this is just nitpicky stuff, so on and so forth. So let's move on. Yeah, again, these are just nitpicky things. But let's go on to shortcuts, because remember, when I first set up an operating system on the computer, I want those shortcuts to the file server, and I have them sitting over here. So obviously, I've been able to do the shortcuts. But how am I able to do that? Because it is different than doing them in Linux Mint Cinnamon. So let's go on. Let's go into documents here with Plasma or with Dolphin. Let's create a shortcut. So I right mouse click on here. Nothing says anything about shortcuts or symbolic links or anything, because you have to go to create new. Then you're going to be going to link a file or directory, which is fine. Click on that. Now I got to go select my directory or file. Select that. It's going to ask me, are you creating a shortcut for a file or a directory? Well, I'm doing it as a directory, and I'm on that directory, so that's the one I'm choosing. And you can name it here, and I'm just going to type in short here, and I'll hit OK, and then it puts the shortcut inside the test folder that we just were on, and I can drag this out onto my desktop now, and I have access to that through a shortcut. So that's why you do shortcuts with Dolphin. Extra steps than it is with a Nemo, because I just right mouse click, make link, boom, my link's there, and I'm done. So that's basically how you create shortcuts. But remember, there are to create a symbolic link or shortcut, you can use your keyboard to do that. The keyboards again is Shift Control. And I looked up in Dolphin, and Dolphin uses Shift Control. I'm pretty sure that that's a global command in Linux. But if you do Shift Control and pull this out, it copies it. It doesn't create a link. Well, that's how I was creating my links in Linux Mint Cinnamon. And it doesn't matter if I'm using the Dolphin file manager or the Nemo file manager, because in the Nemo file manager on Linux Mint Cinnamon, it created that. So it's a quirky thing with KDE Plasma on this shortcut thing. Now, they might use different shortcut keystrokes to do it. I don't know, because when I looked it up online, it said it was shift control, just like Linux Mint Cinnamon. So then how do I create these shortcuts to my server if I can't do it through the GUI like I just tried it? Well, everything you do in the GUI you can do in the command line. So I looked up the command line to make symbolic links or shortcuts, and this is it right here. It's sudo ln-s, and then you've got to put the path of your directory that you want to try and share, and then the path of where you're going to put that share. You hit enter, put in your password, boom, it's done. It's just a quirky way to get around this. I mean, so I had to do a terminal command for each one of the shortcuts I have on the side here, because I'm getting that shortcut from the server. Anyway, it's just kind of quirky. I don't know what the deal is there, but that's just what it is. In order for me to use Dolphin as my default file manager in KDE Plasma, which thank goodness they have this, they have a section where you can set up default applications. Well, one of the options that you can set up is your file manager. So I chose Nemo as my default file manager. That's why when I click on these folders here, it pulls up Nemo instead of Dolphin. Now, obviously, Dolphin is still on the system if I want to use Dolphin for any reason, so on and so forth. But that's how I got around that. I feel more at home being able to use Dolphin as my default file manager on a KDE Plasma desktop. Now let's just talk about how do you get the trash can, how do you get the home folder, how do you get your network drives, your mounted drives on the desktop. Well, it doesn't work the same way. Now, I have messed around with the GNOME desktop, and it works the same way as it does in Linux Mint Cinnamon. You go and you edit your desktop, customize your desktop, and you'll have an option there that you can click on, show the home folder, show the trash, show mounted devices, show the computer one if you want the computer folder on there. But that is not an option in KDE Plasma. So then how do I get these on here? Well, the home folder file manager, I just have to go in here and I just hit add to desktop. My Hulk NAS drive, I had to make a shortcut to it. In Linux Mint Cinnamon, when I hit mounted drives, because a network drive is considered to be a mounted drive, it shows up automatically on the desktop. And then anything that I put in, like a USB drive or anything like that, would also show up on the desktop if I had it to display mounted drives. Now, you don't have to display mounted drives because they will automatically be in your file manager, just like they are here. The way KDE Plasma handles those mounted drives is they have an application, and it's sitting in the toolbar, and it's this one right here, disks and devices. And this is also a widget that you can put on the desktop if you want that on the desktop. So that's how you access your mounted devices, is through this app here instead of directly on the desktop, which is fine. I'm okay with that. That isn't like a big deal to me. You know, it'd be nice if when they created KDE Plasma desktop, it is a very nice desktop. Believe me, I really like the KDE Plasma desktop. It's a very efficient desktop. It's more Windows-like. It performs better than Linux Mint Cinnamon. So there's lots of good things about KDE Plasma. It's just that because I'm coming from Cinnamon to KDE Plasma, I have to deal with these little quirky things that I have to work around. Now, the trash can. How did I get the trash can here? It's a widget. So it's like, so I have to go into edit mode, then have to go to widget, and then I got to find the trash can in the widget. It just would have been nicer if KDE Plasma would have had somewhere in their settings to just automatically display those certain things, and they've just chosen to do them differently. It's just quirky, and I normally don't even have a trash can on the desktop. I just wanted to show you that as an example, so on and so forth. So that's really it in a nutshell as far as of the file manager and how to display devices and my network drives and shortcuts and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, let's just talk about how the virtual desktops work. So there is no icon down in the barcode here that I can do like I did in Cinnamon, but this up here, and I'm going to go into edit mode just so you can see this. So this is their widget for navigating between desktops. Normally this is down in the barcode or in your task manager barcode, whatever, but it takes up too much room. So I just dragged it off and I put it up to here, and I made it as small as I could. And when it's at the top, it's just kind of out of the way. I don't even notice it. But if I do want to use my mouse to navigate, I can. Or I can use my shortcut keys. The shortcut key in here, instead of Control Alt, it's Control Windows or Super key. And And then if I want to see my desktops like I did in Linux Mint, they're right here miniaturized, and I can drag this spreadsheet to a different desktop just like I could in Cinnamon. If I go here, I'm just going to drag this back, so on and so forth. So it's just a matter of things just are done a little differently, and I'm fine with that. I'm like, okay, this is okay. I can deal with this. I'll deal with it. My biggest challenge was the VM for editing videos. So in PikaOS, I cannot install VMware because VMware has to be compiled on the system that you're using, and the kernel is too new to use their compiler. There is a way, if you know how to do it, there's a way to do it. And there's a guy on GitHub that does have a solution for different kernels for VMware, but he doesn't have the solution for the kernel I'm using, and so VMware was out. And I don't know how to figure it out myself. I'm not that big of a Linux guru to figure that out myself. So I decided, well, I'll try GNOME boxes. I've tried them all before, and I thought I'll just throw it in GNOME boxes, see how it'll work. I am on a newer system now. You know, I do have the Ryzen 9 9550X, and so I threw it on there, and surprisingly, it worked okay enough for me to video edit on. Not as good as VMware, but still good enough for me to edit videos on. And when I say edit, it's just when I'm playing it and watching the display. If the display is choppy to the voice, then it makes it really hard. But it was good enough. It was maybe pixelized, but I didn't lose any of the video to the audio. But I wasn't happy because the network performance was so bad. I don't know what network driver they're using, and you can't change that network driver in the VM. I only get 10 to 20 megabytes per second copying anything into my VM. And I've got a 10 gig network. And I never had that issue before, with the exception of using GNOME boxes. And I don't know if it's because I'm using an AMD board, and it's an AMD, the 10 gigabit network card is built on the motherboard. I don't know if this doesn't know which driver to put in, but it just doesn't work very good. So I edited one video that way. It worked fine. Not the greatest, you know, but I could live with it. But I knew that there was a program called WinApps and WinBoat, which allowed you to run your Windows applications outside the VM. It still runs a VM, but it allows you to run it outside the VM. In fact, I'm just going to show you here really quick. I'm going to launch I use Vegas Pro, so these are all the apps that are in my Windows VM. They're all available to launch from this application. And so, and you'll see that it loads up pretty quick, and it just loads up the last video that I was editing. And I believe this is the WinBoat. This is my video on WinBoat, so if you want to learn how to install WinBoat, set it up, so on and so forth, you can. And again, this is going to depend on your machine. Most of your newer processors today run VMs much more efficiently than processors from 10 years ago, which my older system was. So it's very, very efficient. In fact, if I play this, I turn the sound off because I want to mix it. You can see that it's playing just fine. And one of the problems I had with trying to edit within a VM is the video was so choppy, it was skipping around with the voice, and I couldn't do it. But I loaded up WinBoat, and because of the new system, it works great. It works just as good as it did in VMware, which is great, because I can, if I really want, I can run this display on the best display mode if I want to. And so it works really well. I'm really happy on how that works. And so that was my biggest challenge. And now that I've got that done, and I'm on a new system as well, I'm just really happy with PikaOS. I really wanted to see, you know, if there's performance differences just for me to use it as a daily driver. It's really appealing. My son now is gaming on PikaOS. He loves PikaOS. It's just if you want to stay within the Debian family, I've got a video on gaming on PikaOS. It's just a great application. I really like the fact that they're making these gaming distros because they're giving you the most current kernels and drivers to make your system run the most efficient that it can and the most compatible that it can. And before, to have this kind of compatibility, you basically had to run Arch, and you had to know how to install the latest and greatest Mesa drivers, maybe even drivers for your CPU, and now all that's done with these gaming distros. It's great. If you want the most efficient desktop possible, the gaming ones are the way to go. It's just that not all of them can be used as daily drivers. And I did one on CachyOS and how to make that a daily driver. They're just missing a little bit as far as they limit you on the apps that you can install, but you can get around that and install another app manager that allows you to have access to way more apps than what CachyOS allows you to use within their within their distro. So these are just some of the challenges I faced going to PikaOS. I worked them out. I'm loving how the system works. So if you're interested in the PikaOS and how to game on it, how to get it installed, get it up and running, it's really easy. Watch my video. So why did I move to PikaOS? It's really basically performance. KDE Plasma is a great GUI interface, even though it's got some quirks that I had to work around. But PikaOS also offers the latest drivers and kernels. It just gave me a really smooth performance with my new system over Linux Mint Cinnamon. Anyway, this is TJ with TechmadeEZ. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.
Now that was easy